Discover the incredible truth about ancient Egypt's hidden junk food, 5 shocking secrets revealed. In the quiet town of Mill Creek, nestled somewhere in Middle America, a small diner named Jake's stood like a beacon of comfort. For decades, it was the heart of the community, where friendly faces gathered over thick soups, hearty burgers, and hand-cut fries. Jake, the seasoned cook and owner, dreamed beyond the grease-splattered walls. He envisioned crafting a culinary gem, a place where flavors danced and families reunited around tables. One fateful afternoon, while dust motes floated lazily in the sunlight filtering through grimy windows, Jake stumbled upon an ancient Egyptian recipe book tucked under a pile of forgotten cooking magazines. The moment he opened its worn pages, an exhilarating burst of spices and colors whirled around him. It felt as if the spirit of culinary history breathed life into the diner itself. Inspired, Jake imagined blending those exotic flavors with his beloved American comfort food, creating something completely unique and utterly extraordinary. However, his ambitious dreams collided harshly with Martin, the snobbish owner of the town's upscale restaurant. Rolling his eyes disdainfully, Martin sneered at Jake's excitement. "That junk food is unworthy of our community's palate," he grumbled during a town meeting, his voice dripping with condescension. The words burned into Jake's heart. But his family stood behind him, rallied by the same values they held dear: hard work, resilience, and unwavering community spirit. They jokingly teased him, rolling up their sleeves to help recreate those ancient dishes, ready to put a fresh twist on their diner's specials. Just when hope began to spark, fate dealt a cruel hand. The infamous food critic, known for his scathingly condescending reviews, dined at Jake's only to deem his new creations unworthy. The blow struck hard, like a falling hammer, leaving the diner feeling like a battlefield of dreams dashed and insecurity lingering. Can you imagine the disbelief Jake felt as despair crept in? That tiny diner, once shimmering with possibilities, now felt like a shadow of its former self. As the annual Mill Creek Community Food Festival approached, tension hung thick in the air. With each passing day, Jake found himself pouring love and sweat into his creations, desperate to show the community that food wasn't just about taste, it was about memories, stories, and bringing people together. He envisioned families laughing and sharing over his dishes, just like the old days. The day of the festival dawned bright and hopeful. Jake watched, heart racing, as the crowd gathered around his booth, hesitant yet curious. Would they embrace the difference? The aroma of familiar favorites entwined with exotic spices caught noses and sparked interest. Jake's heart pounded as he scanned the crowd for reassurance from his family. Just when smiles began to bloom on curious faces, he spotted Martin lurking in the back, arms crossed, watching with a smirk. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The crowd hesitated. As they took their first tentative bites, a wave of anticipation and nostalgia washed over them. Familiar flavors melded with spices that danced on their tongues. Jake held his breath, hoping this moment would unfold as he had imagined. Would they accept him? Or would prejudice still dictate his place at the table? In that charged moment, every eye seemed focused on the joy spreading like sunlight across faces, a smile here, a nod of approval there. Yet, Jake's heart thrummed with uncertainty. Would this festival be his triumph, or yet another step back in a battle he felt he could almost win? As laughter mingled with the sizzle of frying oil, Jake's heart raced. In the bustling atmosphere, older residents reminisced about childhood meals, while younger folks snapped photos, eyes wide with curiosity. A couple of kids giggled over his spicy Egyptian-style fries, their faces lit with delight like fireworks lighting up the night sky. Jake's hands trembled as he plated another order, decorated with a sprinkle of ancient spices, a delicate nod to the past. The air buzzed with excitement, and for an instant, he caught a glimpse of what he had hoped for: a community coming together, tasting history. But as he turned around, the critic's face loomed in his mind like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over the bright moments unfolding around him. "Hey, Jake. Can I get some more of those spicy tater tots?" A voice piped up, pulling Jake back from the edge of doubt. It was Clara, a regular, with her blue eyes sparking with enthusiasm. The sight of her warmth steadied his nerves. "Coming right up," he replied, flashing a grin. Each request felt like a lifeline, drawing him back from the precipice of failure he'd almost slipped into. As he served the waiting customers, Jake noticed Jeff, the football coach, smiling as he devoured each bite. "This is genius," he exclaimed, barely pausing between mouthfuls. "Who knew you could bring such flavor to fry?" Cheers and whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. Familiar faces turned towards him, hopeful. And just when he thought it couldn't get better, he spotted his teenage daughter, Maddie, waving wildly. She had her friends gathered around, their laughter ringing out like music. The sight warmed Jake's heart. "Dad!" Maddie called out. "We had to try this. It's insane." She took a bite of the saffron-infused burger he had crafted, her eyes widening. "You're gonna blow Martin away." But the mention of Martin brought back the weight of his disdainful glare. Would the acceptance of this new creation really silence the words of judgment that haunted him? As the day stretched on, Jake found himself lost in exchanges of joy and uncertainty, weaving his way through the throngs with a full plate and a hopeful spirit. Throughout the afternoon, the crowd continued to grow, each new customer a chance to share his passion. Faces softened upon trying his dishes, and he admired every reaction, the nods, the smiles, the conversations sparked by food. It was just as he dreamed, but there was still a flicker of fear just beneath the surface. Then it happened. All of a sudden, clapping broke out, loud and boisterous. The crowd turned towards an older gentleman who had made his way to the front. He stood up, a towering figure of the town, the former mayor, and an old friend of Jake's father. "Listen up, folks," he boomed. "This is what community is all about. We support our own." As more people cheered, Jake's heart swelled, hope igniting anew, but then, piercing through the applause, Jake heard a voice from the back, a familiar sneer. Martin had stepped up, arms crossed and his face set in an unimpressed frown. "What's this? A circus masquerading as a dinner?" he called out, the glee in the air dimming slightly. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The momentary glow of acceptance flickered. How could he maintain the hope he'd started to build when faced with such a challenge? Jake looked across his booth at the smiling faces. He could almost see his family's encouragement, feel their unwavering support. But would that be enough to counter the doubt just planted? As he gathered his resolve, Jake understood that this wasn't just about food, it was about belonging, courage, and redefining what success truly means. Before he could respond, the audience's murmurs grew louder. What would he say? Would he take a stand, defend his creations, and reclaim his home? Or would he let the shadows of fear creep back in? All eyes were on him, hanging on his next move. The murmurs in the crowd grew into a low buzz, a charged energy hanging in the air like static before a storm. Jake's heart felt like a drum, pounding loudly enough for everyone to hear. In that electric moment, he realized he wasn't just standing there as a cook. He was standing for everything he believed in, his dreams, his heritage, and his place in this community. "Martin," Jake finally managed to say, his voice steadying, "this isn't just food. It's a piece of who we all are. It's about memories, nostalgia, and sharing a part of our culture." The words poured from him, his heart lifting with each statement. "We all have our favorites, our comfort foods that remind us of home. I just happen to be sharing mine with you." As he spoke, he could see faces turning towards Martin, uncertainty softening into contemplation. Jake took a deep breath, letting the air fill his lungs, fueling his passion. "I think we should celebrate what makes us different. My fries are spiced with love, just like your mom's meatloaf, Clara's special chili, or that pie from Sarah's bakery. We're all unique, and it's time we embrace that. For a moment, Martin's brows furrowed, skepticism etched on his face as he processed Jake's words. But then, something shifted. The muscle in his jaw relaxed, and the opposition began to fade. Jake's plea wasn't an attack, it was an invitation to unity. A child shouted from the back, "I love the spicy fries." The laughter broke the tension, and soon, others echoed their agreement. The warmth of community wrapped around Jake, pushing back against the chilling whispers of doubt. The former mayor stepped forward again, raising his hands for silence. Let us hear it for creativity. For local flavor. For Jake. Thunderous applause erupted, each clap sounding like a safe haven against Martin's past criticism. Jake couldn't help but smile, the corners of his mouth turning upwards as he soaked in the support, the hope swelling in his chest. He had poured his heart into this, and finally, it was being recognized, but as the clapping subsided, he could see Martin's face still wearing a mask of disbelief. Let us see how long this lasts, Martin muttered under his breath, loud enough for Jake to catch. Something twisted in Jake's stomach. Suddenly, the excitement felt precarious. Did the crowd really believe in him, or were they simply swept up in the show? What would happen when it came time for the real critique, the one with paper and pen? Jake took an unsteady breath, ready to cling to the moment, yet aware of the lurking doubts. As the crowd cheered, Jake caught a glimpse of Maddie, her bright smile piercing through the lingering shadows of uncertainty. She nodded at him, her faith radiating warmth, and he knew he had to keep fighting for everything that mattered. Let me prove myself. He shouted, surprising even himself with his enthusiasm. Come back tomorrow for a special tasting event. Bring your friends, your families, and let us turn this into a celebration. The crowd erupted once again, voices intertwining, and hope began to swirl like a sweet, fresh breeze, but as the energy rushed around him, Jake wondered, would tomorrow really be different? How could he prepare for the real critics, those who would dig deeper than surface flavors? Could he keep this momentum alive and truly carve out a place for his food and himself in this community? Jake's heart raced with both excitement and fear as he realized the real challenge was just beginning, and all he needed was one more push, one more chance to reveal the truth that lay beneath the surface of his culinary dreams. The next morning dawned bright and clear, casting a hopeful glow over the town. Jake awoke with a sense of urgency, the events of the previous day flashing vividly in his mind. He could still hear the applause reverberating in his ears, the warmth from the crowd igniting a spark within him. But today felt different. There were no guarantees. He quickly filled his kitchen with the aroma of spices mingling with freshly cut vegetables. Each chop echoed his resolve, each stir of the pot added to his determination. He was preparing not only food but also an experience, a way to connect with his neighbors, to bind them through shared tastes and traditions. As the sun climbed higher, he stepped outside to serve the dishes. The line of people started to form early, anticipation buzzing in the air like a live wire. He greeted them warmly, each smile an affirmation of why he was here, a reminder of what he was fighting for. The chatter among the locals grew, names floated through the crowd: Maddie, Clara, and even Martin mentioned, their opinions topping the conversations. Did you try his fries? Someone asked, and it was as if a wave swept through the group. More laughter, more eagerness, but he could feel a hint of skepticism lingering just beneath the surface. Jake stood behind the counter, diligently plating the spicy fries next to homemade dips. He could feel sweat trickling down his back as he moved. This was it. He had to show them. As he handed over the first plate, he caught Maddie's eye. She smiled wide, her enthusiasm infectious. He knew she believed in him, and that belief anchored him, but before he could lean back into the rhythm of his work, he spotted Martin at the edge of the crowd. The man lingered, arms crossed tight over his chest, his expression unreadable. Anxiety crept into Jake's stomach. Would Martin's skepticism cloud the judgment of everyone else? Hey, Jake, a voice called out, pulling his attention back. It was Clara, holding a plate piled high with fries. These taste amazing. What's the secret? Jake beamed, pride washing over him like a wave. "It's just a mix of spices that remind me of my home," he replied, then gestured toward the crowd. "And don't forget, every bite carries a story." For a moment, the chatter quieted, and he realized they were leaning in, eager to listen. Another child piped up, "What stories?" Jake swallowed hard, knowing he had their attention. "Like every spice tells a tale of the kitchen, of family dinners and late-night talks. Each one has a place in our hearts, bringing us all together again." As each dish went out, he took snippets of conversations, laughter echoing back at him. People were more than just customers, they were friends and neighbors sharing memories. Still, Martin's presence felt like a shadow looming over him. Then without warning, an uneasy silence fell. Jake looked up to see Martin stepping through the crowd, holding a plate of fries, scrutinizing every detail. The tension was palpable. This was the moment that could either lift Jake up or bring him crashing down. "Jake," Martin finally spoke, his voice steady but with an edge, "you seem to have everyone dancing to your tune today. But do these really live up to the hype?" A hush swept the gathering. Jake's heart raced. Here was the harsh critique he'd been dreading, but it was also an opportunity. This could change everything. "What do you think?" Jake asked, forcing his voice to remain calm. Martin took a bite, chewing slowly. The eyes of the crowd pinned on him, breaths held tight. Jake fought the urge to fidget, every second stretching painfully. Finally, Martin's eyes lifted, his expression unreadable. "Well, let's see if you can surprise me tomorrow too." The crowd erupted, half in relief, half in confusion. But Jake understood this was just the beginning of the real challenge, the real fight to bring his vision to life. With hope and uncertainty swirling in his chest, he realized that tomorrow held his chance to win over the toughest critic. Would he be ready to face whatever judgment awaited him? As the lines began to dwindle and the crowd slowly dispersed, one thing was clear: he had a lot more to prove. And with each passing hour leading to the next tasting event, his heart thumped louder, echoing a question in his mind: how far would he go to protect not just his food, but his place in this community? Jake spent the rest of the evening restless, his mind a swirling vortex of doubt and determination. He tidied up his kitchen, wiping down the counters and stacking plates, but the excitement from earlier had settled into a quiet tension. Tomorrow was looming, and he still had no idea what Martin would want to see or taste. Just a small part of him wondered if he could blow it all away with just one dish. Would a single meal truly be enough to sway his toughest critic? The night was calm, the moon hanging high and bright, casting shadows across the small town. Jake could hear the distant hum of crickets, a reminder that life around him continued, even as his heart raced. After all, he wasn't just fighting for a successful business. He was fighting for community, for acceptance, and the longing to belong. That he slipped into bed, tossing and turning in a dreadful dance of worry and hope. The memories of the day played back in his head: the joy in Clara's laugh, the crowd's energy, and Martin's unyielding gaze. He could still feel the comforting warmth of Maddie's smile, as if it could shield him from the world. As the sun crested the horizon the next day, Jake rose with a newfound determination. He decided to make a bold choice, to create something that combined the essence of who he was and the tastes that had shaped his identity. He thought of the people who had shared meals with him, family gatherings, and the chaos of kitchen experiments. He wanted to capture all of that, to serve it on a plate that he found himself kneading dough, thinking about the traditional breads he'd grown up with, perfumes of garlic and herbs wafting through the air as he prepared his dish. He envisioned a fusion of flavors, a dance of spices that told a story about him and his heritage. The thought energized him. He could almost taste the triumph. Mid-morning swung around, and he set up his station outside, the anticipation of the crowd stirring the air. People arrived, and he greeted each familiar face, their smiles igniting a flicker of hope in his heart. But Martin was nowhere in sight, and as each moment ticked away, a knot tightened in Jake's gut. Finally, just as Jake was beginning to doubt himself, he spotted Martin sauntering toward the table. The crowd parted for him, and the air became thick with curiosity. The moment felt monumental. Jake's pulse quickened, his throat went dry. This was the moment he'd been preparing for, a chance to show Martin what he was capable of. "Are you ready?" Martin asked, his brow raised, challenging Jake to make his move. "I've got something special for you today," Jake responded, injecting confidence into his voice despite quaking inside. He presented the dish, fragrant and vibrant, a cascade of colors that sparked interest and faded skepticism in the crowd. "This is a fusion of my family's traditional recipes with a twist. I hope it tells a story as delightful as the last." Martin took the plate, examining it closely, and for a moment, everything fell silent again. The crowd leaned in, their eyes darting between the two men. Jake felt exposed, hanging on the edge of an abyss between fear and hope. Martin tasted the first bite, his expression neutral. Uncertainty crept back into Jake's heart. What if this wasn't enough either? What if his dreams crumbled in an instant? As Martin chewed slowly, the seconds felt like hours. The crowd held its breath. Would this be just another respite for Jake, or the final push he needed to validate his place in this community? Then, Martin's brow unfurled. There was something there, an emotion flickering to life, but would it be enough to spark the kind of connection he yearned for? "Jake," Martin finally spoke, a tentative smile spreading across his face. "You might just be onto something here." Jake's face brightened with hope, but before they could savor this moment, an unexpected shout rang from the back of the crowd, shattering the tension in a completely different way. All heads turned, hearts racing anew. "Wait, is that?" Jake's mind raced. What could possibly happen next? Would this reveal? Change everything he hoped for? The shout echoed through the air like a thunderclap, jolting Jake from his moment of potential victory. He turned, his heart pounding in his chest. There, pushing through the crowd, was Clara, her face a mix of panic and excitement. "Jake! You need to see this!" she called out, urgency lacing her voice. The crowd parted for her, and Jake felt a wave of confusion wash over him. What could possibly be happening? He looked at Martin, whose expression mirrored his own bewilderment. This was supposed to be the moment they both savored, and now it was unraveling before his eyes. "Clara, what is going on?" Jake asked, stepping away from his table, the beautiful dish still resting under Martin's gaze, tantalizing and vulnerable all at once. "Just watch," Clara urged, breathless as she pointed toward the sidelines. Jake turned, following her line of sight. At first, he saw nothing but the usual banter of townsfolk and the lively market atmosphere. Then, something moved in the corner of his vision, an odd figure in a colorful costume, juggling what seemed to be appetizing food items while dancing to an upbeat tune. "Is that?" Jake squinted, trying to make sense of the spectacle before him. "Yes. It's a street performer. I think they're here to promote the festival next month," Clara exclaimed, her excitement infectious, but still, Jake couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. As the juggler tossed fruit into the air, the crowd cheered. Laughter and excitement rippled through the onlookers, but Jake felt the weight of the moment shift. This was his chance to impress Martin, to solidify his place among the local food scene, and now it felt like it was on the verge of being overshadowed by this unexpected chaos. "Jake, come on!" Clara beamed, but he couldn't take his focus off Martin, who seemed more intrigued by the juggler than his dish. "Do you need a moment?" Martin asked, glancing back at Jake, a mixture of curiosity and amusement in his eyes. "No, Jake turned back to the crowd. The juggler had transitioned into a flamboyant shout of encouragement, calling people to try some outrageous food combinations. He waved his arms dramatically, urging the happiest faces forward. "Hurry up, Jake. Show him what you've got." Clara's voice rang out, pushing him forward like a gentle coach nudging him toward the finish line. Jake took a deep breath, battling the cacophony of anxiety that bubbled up. He had put his heart into that dish. It was more than just food. It was a piece of him, a slice of his family's history served with a side of hope. With newfound resolve, he focused on Martin once more, who had turned to observe the scene unfolding. It's just that it's more than a meal to me. It's my story, Jake said, searching Martin's gaze for understanding. Martin nodded, gesturing back to the vibrant dish resting on the table. Then let us hear that story, Jake. The festival, the juggler, they're just background noise. You have the stage. A wave of gratitude washed over Jake. Maybe this was it. The moment was still ripe for him to seize. He turned back to the crowd, and a burst of inspiration surged within him. All right, everyone. Gather round. Jake shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. The crowd turned, a mix of curiosity and excitement on their faces, the juggler momentarily forgotten. I want to take you on a journey with my dish. Let me share the flavors that shaped my life. He took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the community, the faces of his friends and neighbors encouraging him, a mix of admiration and support blooming in the atmosphere. Yet, just as he began to speak, a loud crash erupted from the other side of the market. Panic spread like wildfire through the audience. What now? Clara gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief. Jake's heart sank. The distractions were piling up, but this time, he wouldn't let anything take away his moment. He couldn't afford to lose this opportunity. His voice was ready to soar, but what could possibly happen now to distract everyone from his time to shine? The crowd's attention snapped like a taut string. Jake's heart raced as he turned toward the source of the crash. A stand had toppled over, sending jars of preserves and boxes of baked goods skidding across the ground. The vibrant displays now looked like a colorful battlefield, with startled shoppers darting in all directions to avoid the chaos. Hold tight. Clara shouted, her voice strained with concern. She clutched Jake's arm, the excitement of moments before evaporating into a tense atmosphere. Martin moved closer to Jake, his brow furrowing. Do you want to pause? He asked, a hint of caution in his voice. But Jake felt fired up. This was his moment, not just in front of Martin, but for everyone who had ever doubted him. No, I can't. Not now, he insisted. His voice didn't waver, even as the crowd's excitement turned to concern. I just need to focus. With every heartbeat, he felt the story of his dish rush through him. It pulsed in his veins, the blend of spices his grandmother had taught him, the soulful connection to memories that shaped him. Listen! Jake yelled, fighting the noise of shuffling feet and rising whispers. This dish isn't just food. It's a reflection of my family. It's about love, hard work, and coming from a place where every ingredient tells a story. The uproar around him began to quiet, curiosity weaving through the throngs of people. Some turned their heads back to him, intrigued once more. Others still glanced nervously towards the toppled stand. Clara's grip on his arm relaxed, her confidence in him was returning. Martin stepped forward, an encouraging smile breaking through the darkness of the moment. Tell us, a voice called from the crowd. Jake seized the chance. He stepped forward, his own excitement flaring. My family started out in a little kitchen, where every dish was crafted with heart. It's my grandmother's recipe that I've reimagined today. Each bite represents the struggles, the triumphs, the love we shared around the table. As he described each ingredient, a hush fell over the crowd. The vibrant reds and greens of his dish caught the sunlight, and Jake painted a picture with words. Flavors danced in the air between them. When he mentioned the secret spice blend, he could see eyes widen in curiosity. The flavor combination that described not only his heritage but also why food mattered so much resonated in the hearts of those listening. But just as enthusiasm began to ripple back through the audience, Clara gasped again, her eyes wide with a sudden thought. Jake! The juggler! He looks like yes about to. Jake turned, and before he could register what she meant, the performer lost control of a spinning apple and sent it flying straight into a nearby vendor's cart. Chaos erupted all over again, laughter mingling with disbelief. Get the apple! Shouted a little boy, pointing and giggling. Despite the constant interruptions, Jake could feel the energy build within him. He would not allow the moment to slip away again. His heart thundered as he raised his hands, embracing the crowd's laughter. Just like cooking. Sometimes, things don't go as planned, but that's what makes it feel alive. With mischief in his eyes, he turned back to his dish, lifting a spoonful with a flourish. And speaking of plans, let us try something special together. The crowd fell silent again, anticipation crackling in the air. Jake felt the energy of the moment shift as he prepared to engage them in a culinary adventure, one that would leave a lasting impression. But just as he was about to dive into the taste of his creation, another commotion arose. "Hey, Jake! You've got to see this!" Clara yelled, caught between laughter and concern. Jake's heart lurched. What had happened now? Would this time be a distraction he couldn't recover from? Clara pointed, her voice almost drowned by the laughter of the crowd. "The juggler's lost his other apple," she exclaimed, barely able to contain her giggles. Jake turned just in time to see the second apple spiraling through the air, precariously close to another vendor's stand. "Oh no, not again!" Jake exclaimed, trying to maintain his composure. The sight of flying fruit was both ridiculous and chaotic, and he felt a blend of horror and amusement bubble within him. The apple careened off a stack of muffins, sending them tumbling like colorful cannonballs. The vendor, a stout woman with a smile that could brighten the stormiest day, threw her hands up in disbelief. The crowd erupted in howls of laughter as the juggler finally lost balance and stumbled into a group of spectators, who caught him, raising him up like he was part of the performance. "See? It's all part of the show," Jake managed to shout over the laughter. "Just like cooking, right? A little chaos can lead to something great." He let the smile reach his eyes. That was it. He knew he had to hook them back in, keep the energy flowing. "Okay, everyone," he declared, excitement crackling in the air once again. "Who wants to taste?" He gestured grandly toward his colorful dish, ready to reclaim the spotlight that a chorus of cheers erupted from the crowd, their faces alight with anticipation. With renewed determination, he scooped a heaping spoonful of the vibrant creation. "I want you all to experience these flavors as they were intended. Come on, everyone. Let us make something magical happen." Jake carefully handed out samples, the spicy aroma wafting through the air as eager hands reached for the dish. Each spoonful he offered seemed to ignite different reactions, smiles blossomed wider, eyebrows raised in surprise, and a few delighted gasps filled the space. The laughter and chaos of moments ago faded into nothing as it was replaced by the communal enjoyment of something delicious. "Wow! This is amazing! What's in here?" a woman asked, savoring the first bite. Her eyes sparkled with joy. "It's all about the journey," Jake replied, his heart swelling with pride. He watched people enjoying his dish, the stories of his past swirling into the present, blending together like the flavors in his recipe. Every ingredient has a reason, a memory, even a joke. Imagine gathering around the table with your family, sharing all the flavors of life, he added, infusing his voice with warmth. Just as the crowd became engrossed in the culinary journey he had crafted, a sudden hush swept over them. Jake turned to see the juggler now regaining his composure, standing next to a little girl with a bright red balloon. He was dusting himself off with an exaggerated flourish, like a magician after a trick gone awry. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the apple-flinging entertainer," he declared, righting himself with a playful bow. The crowd erupted into laughter once more, a wave of joy washing over everyone, binding them together in this quirky moment. But amidst the fun and delight, Jake sensed a flicker of unease wash over Clara. She was quiet, a troubled look forming in those deep, expressive eyes. "Jake, wait!" she called, her voice urgent. "There is something you need to know about." Before she could finish, a loud crash ripped through the celebration. A stack of tables tipped over, sending dishes clattering to the ground. Jake's heart sank as he turned to witness chaos erupting once more. What had just gone so right felt on the verge of spiraling out of control again. "Stick together. He called to Clara, panic edging his voice. What could possibly follow this? Would they ever find their way back to joy? Jake rushed over to where the tables had fallen, his heart racing. The initial sound of laughter had quickly transformed into cries of surprise and concern. He shoved aside a chair, noticing Clara standing frozen, her eyes wide. "Clara! Are you okay?" he shouted, retracing his steps through the mess of overturned tables and scattered food. The crowd had turned from laughing spectators to a frenzied group trying to help. People were lifting tables, checking on one another, and helping to gather the remnants of Jake's culinary display. "I'm fine," but Jake, her voice trembled slightly, pulling at his focus. "I saw something just before the crash." He shook his head slightly, trying to clear the panic fogging his mind. "What do you mean?" he pressed, concern etched on his forehead. "Look." She pointed with shaking fingers. "The juggler." Jake's gaze darted over toward the juggler, who was now managing to juggle again, this time with more determination. Yet, it was the little girl beside him that caught Jake's eye. She was gripping her balloon tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks, her innocent face twisted with distress. Without thinking, Jake rushed toward them. "Hey, is she all right?" he asked, kneeling next to the girl. The juggler gave him a frantic nod, but it was clear he was struggling to juggle the performance and take care of the child at the same time. Joyce was scared. The juggler explained, his voice a mix of desperation and focus. "She hates loud noises." "I was trying to entertain her." Jake reached out, kneeling to meet the girl's height. "Hey there, Joyce, look at me," he said softly, reminding himself of the comfort he used to provide in his kitchen when things went awry. "You're okay, it's just a little bit of noise, right? You want to see something special?" Joyce nodded slowly, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. "Do you like food?" he asked, his voice warm and inviting. "I made something really colorful over there." He gestured toward where the scattered remnants of his dish still lay, vibrant and uncooked against the chaos. Jake's attempt to lift her spirits was contagious, and for a moment, the small crowd who had gathered around this little scene paused, willing her to laugh. Joyful murmurs came bouncing off the walls as Clara stepped forward, packing a quiet strength as she spoke. "Let us all dig in, Joyce. Would you like to help me hand out the food?" Joyce blinked, her expression flickering from fear to curiosity. "Can I?" "Absolutely." Clara smiled, reaching out a hand. "Just like a magic trick. You won't need to juggle, I promise." With trembling hands, Joyce took Clara's, slowly standing tall. The chaos lingered around them, but an invisible thread began to weave a new connection among the crowd. Jake could feel relief replacing panic, laughter began to bubble up again, replacing the tension that had built so quickly moments before. "Here we go, all together." Clara beamed, leading Joyce toward the table. "Let us show everyone our creation." Joyce's face brightened, the shine of her balloon reflecting her energy. Jake marveled at how quickly joy returned, their playful energy breaking through the remnants of fear. People began to gather around, anticipation rekindling, but just as the crowd started returning to normalcy, Jake locked eyes with Clara, who had moved to his side. The worry remained, a shadow behind her bright smile. "Jake, about what I was saying before, what is it?" he asked, leaning closer to her as the laughter continued to swirl around them. "I think we might have more to worry about than just apples and tables," she said softly. Jake's heartbeat quickened. What was it that had been left unsaid? And why did it feel like this simple festival was just the beginning of something far greater than any of them anticipated? The crowd's jovial moments suddenly felt overshadowed by that uncertainty. Jake searched Clara's face, eager to uncover the mystery she sensed. But first, they needed to help Joyce, and then, they would confront whatever awaited them. What was lurking beyond the laughter and chaos? Finally, clarity emerged from the whirlwind of distractions. As Jake took a moment to collect himself, he felt the warmth of the community surrounding him. Joyce's laughter rang sweetly in his ears while Clara joined the minor carnival that had formed around them, pulling the little girl into a joyful dance of color and laughter. The tables may have tumbled, but hope rose anew. "Look at that smile!" Jake exclaimed, his heart swelling with pride. He turned back to the crowd and called out, "Let us keep the energy flowing, everyone. Let us dig in." He began passing out freshly plated samples, and one by one, familiar faces bit into his creations, their reactions igniting a spark of joy in him. As he watched, all those friendly faces became blurred in a haze of excitement and purpose. Clara's laughter entwined with the crowd until it became a symphony of shared joy. Each sip, each taste blossomed into conversations of memories and dreams. Then, he noticed Martin standing just on the edge of the gathering, his wary expression softening amid the vibrant chaos. Could it be? Was the appreciation forming in Martin's eyes an invitation rather than a defense? Taking a deep breath, Jake decided it was time to take a leap of faith. "Martin!" Jake called, waving him over, "You've got to try this. Tell us what you think." A hush fell over the crowd as all eyes turned toward him. With hesitation painted across his face, Martin approached Jake. "You really think I'll change my mind over a few nibbles?" He scoffed lightly, but there was an undeniable glimmer of curiosity in his tone. "We've all been a little skeptical today, haven't we?" Jake said, his voice blending admiration and determination. "But food is about more than just critique. It's about community. It's about what we create together." A few moments passed, and then Martin finally took a generous spoonful of Jake's signature dish. The crowd held its breath as Martin chewed slowly, unexpected silence weaving a tenuous thread of tension between uncertainty and hope. When he swallowed, a change washed over him. A smile broke through, genuine and surprisingly bright. "You might actually pull this off, Jake," he said, a hint of respect layering his words. Jake's heart fluttered. That was a sign. "Wait till you all try it at the festival," he shouted with excitement. "This is just the beginning." The new energy spread, light and joyous. Laughter rippled through the air, and the taste of success filled Jake's mouth almost as richly as his food. "I'm sold!" someone called out, breaking the moment into uproarious applause. A cascade of cheers erupted through the crowd, uniting each person gathered with joy. They were more than friends now, they were family, bonded over flavors and shared experiences. Maddie beamed up at her dad, eyes sparkling with pride. "You did it, Dad. I knew you could." Jake met her gaze, filled with gratitude that surged through him like a warmth he hadn't realized he'd been missing, but just as he reveled in joy, Clara stepped forward, her expression serious, piercing through the celebratory haze. "Jake, we do need to talk. It's important." "Is it about the festival?" Jake asked, still riding the high of Martin's approval. "No, it's about Martin," Clara replied, her voice steady yet urgent. "There's tension between him and the other restaurant owners. They've been talking." Jake paused, uncertainty creeping into his heart. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a simple food festival. The laughter, the warmth, was that really all that mattered? "What are you saying?" he asked, concern threading his brow. "People are feeling protective of the community," Clara continued, her words dropping like stones. "Some feel threatened by your success. They're scared of what it could mean for the diner. They could rally against this change, Jake." Fear burrowed deep within him, but before he could respond, the crowd erupted in newfound enthusiasm as the juggling entertainer was now leading everyone in silly dance moves, the infectious energy sweeping through the gathered crowd once again. "Jake! Come dance!" shouted Maddie, pulling him away from the discourse, her laughter unshakable. In that moment, Jake felt torn. Clara's words weighed heavily on him, but the laughter of his daughter and the warmth of the community tugged at his heart. Jake took a deep breath, feeling a choice materialize before him. He could either dwell in uncertainty or embrace what truly mattered: the love, the connections, and the memories they shared together. So he chose. "Let us dance, everyone." Jake shouted, the fierceness of his spirit reigniting. The crowd roared, his decision cementing itself in joy as they all surged forward into rhythmic delight. And as they twirled under the bright afternoon sun, Jake knew that whatever challenges awaited tomorrow, they would face them together. It was no longer just about redemption or judgment, it was simply about being part of something larger, a beautiful, vibrant life where food and family converged into an unforgettable feast. With hands lifted high and smiles so bright they rivaled the sun, the community embraced the one truth they all believed: they had come together, ready to savor every delicious moment, dancing boldly into a future that felt, at last, like home. Now, it's your turn. If you loved this journey with Jake and his community, you need to subscribe right now. This is the moment to show your support and not miss our next exciting tale. Leave a like now to feed that algorithm, it seriously helps us keep creating these stories. Comment below your thoughts and feelings about this ending, what resonated with you the strongest. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread the joy together.